What is going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to Two Sinners on a Sunday. Yet again, another episode. How are you doing, Ali?
I'm great. How are you, Evans?
I am good. I am excited for another episode, man. We've been
Yeah,
talking about very interesting, saucy, giving out good
secrets.
information and secrets, spilling the tea.
Yeah.
And obviously, people are enjoying it, and a lot of people are uncomfortable with it, which is
Mm-hmm.
great. This is why we are going to move on to the next topic, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we're moving away a little bit now from the secrets of Mormon temples, and we're going to just get into the history of the Mormon faith. And what better place to start than with its founder, Joseph Smith?
The boy
So
himself. Oh boy.
yes,
Okay.
exactly. And Evans and I were talking, and he's like, I don't know anything about Joseph Smith. How did he begin this whole religion? How did this go down? And so I would love to kind of go through all that and in the process, expose another little Mormon secret.
I mean, to be fair, everything that you teach me is a Mormon secret because I don't know much. Here is what I know.
Yeah.
Okay. This
Okay.
is as far as we have had this podcast for a couple of months now. Here is what I
Yes.
know is this is a
Okay.
very interesting sect of Christianity that really hones in on exclusivity, obedience, and rituals, right? And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the rituals happen in the temple that
Yes.
is based on the dead and also the afterlife. And there are a lot
Yes.
of things that you need to learn, i.e., your name, secret handshakes, that is very useful in the afterlife, which you will need to do at the veil when your husband, who knows your secret name, will pull you through because God doesn't have time to know your name. So he delegates to the husband and he pulls you through. And you need to know the secret handshakes and the secret things you need to say, kind of like a secret password to get into the
Oh.
speakeasy secret background. Okay,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
then you enter and then you become husband and wife and create your own universes like that.
That's
And
that's the
within
plan.
that is why you need to be sealed with your husband and also your whole family, including your children, needs to be sealed to get to the celestial heaven if you are able to do that.
Yeah.
And within that secret is also something called the second anointing, where people get past the privileges and they get easy access to heaven whilst they are on earth. And this
Yes.
applies to the man only and it applies to the woman if she is still married to the man.
Yes, sir.
But even if the marriage breaks up, it still applies to the man and the woman loses that opportunity, including the children.
Only if like the temple ceiling was canceled. So
Right.
if
Only
that doesn't
only okay.
happen, then I think everything still stays connected in
Okay. Okay.
one
And
way or another.
as a young person, the only first time that you get access to the temple with very limited knowledge is most of the time when you're getting married, or for guys, most of the time when you're going to the missions for the first time. This is my
Yeah.
understanding of Mormonism
Yeah.
so far. I don't
Okay.
know anything about Joseph Smith. I don't know
Okay.
anything about the doctrine. I don't know anything about the
Right.
foundations, the evolution of Mormonism. And I'm very intrigued by all of this. So I'm going to let you be my guide, my
Okay.
Moses, and follow you
Oh,
as you
I
pass
don't
the Red
know.
Sea of Mormonism
Yeah.
secrets, the Mormonism soup, so to speak. So,
Mm.
yeah, who was Joseph Smith and what are we going to talk about today?
Well, let me take you back to biblical times,
1823.
1823. Okay. Yeah, so if you are a Latter-day Saint that has been raised in the faith since you were very young, you were pretty much taught this narrative for Joseph Smith's origin story. The narrative is basically that he was an ignorant farm boy who hadn't even completed like a third grade education, was a member of a large family that were hardworking farmers and often did a lot of odd jobs and things like that just to get by. And he was a good boy. One day he was seeing how at the time in his area surrounding environment, that great awakening where there were many religions kind of going at it, like the Methodists fighting against the Baptists, like which church is true? And of course, this young
I
man
see.
is questioning and wondering what church is the true church of God and which one should I get baptized in and join. So, what does he do? In his humility, in his attempt to be pious, he decides to go on a walk into this beautiful grove. He kneels, and all of a sudden it starts getting dark and chilly and scary around him, and he doesn't understand what's happening, and it feels like the forces of Satan are pulling him apart, and he's begging God, God, Satan, the devil has me, what am I gonna do? Like, I just want to know which of the churches is true, and like, help me, God, help me, God. And then all of a sudden there is a calm that happens,
Ooh.
and a light comes down, a light that is brighter than the noonday. It
Ooh.
is a beautiful white light, and from this light come down two personages, and one of them is Jesus Christ, and
Oh.
the other one is God the Father.
Oh,
And
the bossman
yeah,
themselves comes down as well.
yeah, they both come down and they reveal themselves and they present themselves, and they basically say, Joseph, we deem you to be a righteous person. What is your question? And he says, well, I want to know which of the churches is true. And they say, none of them. And he's like,
Oh,
whoa.
shot
Like,
fighter.
okay. So it's like none of them. And they explain, yes, none of the churches that are on the earth are any good. They are all corrupt. And basically, we are here to ask you to be the founder of our true church. And
Oh,
it's not going to happen overnight. There's going to be a whole process to get you to prepare yourself to be worthy to begin this. And keep in mind, this young man was only 14 years old, so he had still some growing up to do.
okay.
And so, yeah, so he's a
This
teenager.
is at the age of 14.
This is at the age of 14. Yeah. So he's just this
Ah,
young man who is innocently just asking for understanding of whether the churches that are in his community
yeah, are
are
legitimate. So,
are
okay.
legitimate.
So he
Yeah.
seems to be an explorer of Christianity. He wants to find what is true. He doesn't want to make a
Huh.
mistake, lest
Right.
he pays for it in the end. And
That's right.
God finds it very important to
Yes.
save this man from the evil forces that's happening to him. That Jesus
Yeah.
Christ comes down, and God the Father, the Heavenly Father, finds it very, very pressing that he also comes down too, which
Yes.
obviously contradicts what we know mainstream Christianity to be, which is Jesus Christ is the physical manifestation of God. So, which means
Right.
that God Himself has a physical manifestation separate from Jesus Christ. I get to understand that we are moving away from Trinity right now.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
But before we go too far away from the
Yeah, that's that's
Trinity,
that's that's just I'm just trying to
no, no, no.
I'm just trying to really place myself from someone who
Sure.
understands mainstream Christianity
Yeah.
to really understand
Yeah.
what kind of realm we're getting into and what
Yeah.
mindsets we are approaching, right?
Yeah.
So that I can
Right.
drop that for a second. Okay, cool. Heavenly Father has a body. Jesus Christ has a body. Heavenly
Yeah.
Mother is locked somewhere in the locker room. All right, cool. Let's go.
That's right. She's bound and gagged somewhere that no one knows, and they will never find her. So, yeah. That is where I want to pause the story,
Oh.
okay? Because this is what I'd like to discuss a bit today. For over 100 and some odd years of the church's history,
Mhm.
this is the narrative that's been presented. The narrative that I just shared with you is the mainstream. This is what we're taught. This is who Joseph
Interesting.
Smith is. This is how he had the first vision.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. It's called the
This is what
first
it's
vision.
called.
That's what it's
This is
called.
called the first vision.
I
And this
see.
is what it's called.
Okay.
Now,
Mhm.
unfortunately, as you either deconstruct like I did, or stay within the church but do a little bit of investigating, you will come to learn that there was not just one version of the first vision account, but there were four.
Four.
Okay. Yes.
Oh.
And now I'm going to tell you a few other stories, and I'm going
Okay.
to ask you
Mhm.
how you feel that these stories compare to one another, and
Okay.
then we'll break that down, okay? All right. So, the very first account that's ever been documented was the 1832 account, okay? This was
Okay.
Joseph writing in his own hand, and he wrote it in his journal. And basically, he shares that he was a teenager, he was desperate, he was weighed down with guilt. His words in this account are personal and raw, and he writes, I cried unto the Lord for mercy,
Mhm.
for there was no one else to whom I could go. And then he describes the visitation. Okay, he does not talk about it as two beings. Only one, the Lord Jesus Christ, comes down. So nobody else
Oh.
comes down, just Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Okay.
The message is not about churches being wrong, it's about authority and priesthood keys, it's about forgiveness. What Joseph writes is
Okay.
that his sins are forgiven and his soul is filled with love. So, in this telling of the first vision, he is more concerned about whether or not he's in good standing with God. And he wants to know if his sins could be forgiven. It has nothing
Mm.
to do with kneeling down and asking which church is true. I'm just trying to find the right church. It was about his standing.
Yeah, it was about him feeling or being validated that he has a good standing with God. So he wants to
Mhm.
find forgiveness. Is this consistent with the same age though from the mainstream? When I say mainstream, I mean the one that you were indoctrinated with, first mission. Was he still 14? Is this
Roughly, yes. Roughly,
okay?
yes. In the 1832 account, it says he
Mhm.
was 15, while the
Okay.
other accounts say that he was 14. So, yeah, it's
Okay, I
very
mean,
little.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
okay,
It's
okay.
just a very
He was a
little
teenager, a young teenager.
deviation, but all of them state that he was a teenager. So, yes. But in this first account, it's only one personage shows
Yes,
up, and
yes,
that's Jesus Christ.
yes,
And there's no asking of are all the churches true or not.
yes.
It's
This is
about
about
his, yeah.
personal forgiveness.
Hmm.
I have to wonder, as a 15-year-old, what could you have done to get to a point where you couldn't find forgiveness in any of the church denominations? You had to
Mm.
separate yourself from all the denominations that are available to you to want to find something specific. What could someone have done to get to that level of guilt, shame, need for validation? Because
Yeah,
that need to be forgiven by God is not just something that Christians do. It is pushed, it is driven by something very
sure,
powerful, something very
sure.
emotional. And when Christians go on their knees and they ask for forgiveness, a lot of the time they are in tears, they're broken down. It's a
Yeah,
very genuine,
absolutely.
powerful moment that they go through. And I've experienced this a lot of the time when I was a Christian. So I know
Yeah,
how
of
that
course. Yeah.
feels. But in order for someone to get to the point where he says, well, I can't belong to any church that's on the planet to just find some forgiveness in it by praying to God within that denomination. I have to separate myself to find different ways of doing it. But I find that very curious why he needed to do that in the first place. But again, very contradictory to the first account
Yeah.
or the first
Well,
version of the first account.
the account that has been pushed is the one that we are going to be comparing all these other accounts to. The
Yeah.
one that I first shared, the first
Yes.
story that I shared, that's what everybody has
Right.
been taught and is
Right.
told. This specific account mentioned, like I said, no mention of the two beings. Also, it was written 12 years after the vision happened.
Yes, 1832. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. That's a big jump in time to be writing something like this. For me personally, if something as big as a supernatural entity enters into my life and has a message for me, I'm gonna find a piece of paper and write it down at some point,
Okay.
and like at
To
least
not wait
within a
10
couple weeks.
years.
Not 12.
I mean,
Yeah.
Ali, what did you do 2 hours ago? Can you write it down? Can you write down everything you did
I
2 hours
I
ago?
I I could.
Would it be
Yeah.
accurate?
I think it would be a lot more accurate than a
Hmm.
12-year break of
Right,
time.
right.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking I'm thinking what I ate this
Yeah.
morning, and I'm trying to
Yeah.
imagine how it felt eating that morning. And I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
could accurately describe that. Let's take
Yeah.
that all the way back to 1 year ago with the breakfast that I had in
Oh,
at the
yeah.
beginning
Can
of
you imagine?
2024. Can I describe that in detail? What I
Yeah.
had and how it
Yeah.
felt? Can I do that? I don't.
Right.
I doubt it. Let's take it 5 years
Yeah.
back. Let's take it 10 years back. Can I do that? And that's
Mm.
food that I ate, right? Doesn't
Hmm.
involve any multiple entities. Just me. And this is something that we experience every day. Breakfast. We all experience breakfast every day. And even then, I still can't describe accurately what I ate 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about something that's never happened to any human being, or at
Yeah.
least doesn't happen to people on a regular basis. You
Right.
wait for 10 years to describe that?
Well,
I
and then a
find that
lot of
questionable.
details are
12
missing
years.
because yeah, 12 years. Lots of details are missing. Like there's absolutely no description of being attacked by Satan. That just doesn't even come up in
Yeah, so he's
his
just
journaling.
really, really heavily ridden with
Mhm.
sadness, guilt, and need for forgiveness. And just it just happens. Jesus Christ appears.
One big contradiction is that in this account, Joseph writes that before he even kneeled down to pray, he already knew that there wasn't any true or living faith or denomination. And
Oh.
his primary purpose in going to prayer was to ask for forgiveness for his sins. He
Hmm.
says, by searching the scriptures, I found that mankind did not come unto the Lord, but that they had apostatized from the true and living faith, and there was no society or denomination that was built upon the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Hmm.
Okay.
So this is his own writing
Yes,
of
this is in his hand.
what he wrote, which is
Hmm.
we're supposed to think this is what he wrote before the mainstream one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
Now we go to 1835. In this account, it is a conversation with a stranger. This is recorded in Joseph's diary after telling his story to a visitor. The visitor's name was Robert Matthews. So now we have Joseph's story shifting. Now
Mm.
he says he was about 14 years old. He describes praying and then hearing footsteps behind him. He sees light and then two beings.
Oh.
This time, though, Joseph also mentions angels. He says one of the beings testifies that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and the
Oh.
account feels less like a personal confession and more like a testimony meant to impress the listener. And so that's what makes this one so
Interesting.
yeah, so already the details are
Wow.
changing. Now it's not just Jesus, it's two beings. He doesn't quite
So
clearly
is
identify them,
is
but then
Jesus
there's also
included? Is
angels.
Jesus included
Jesus
in
is
this?
included.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So Jesus and the squad
Yeah.
turns up, and one of the
That's
angels confesses that Jesus is really the Son of God.
nope, none of that. But yeah, so angels are there.
Uh-huh.
And as you can see, the story now is evolving. It
Right.
is growing. This
Yeah,
is a couple
exactly.
years later.
The
Yeah.
Return of the Jedi is happening.
That's right.
Yeah.
Elder
Yeah.
Cunningham.
Yeah.
Yep. Here we go. Book of Arnold. Okay, so there we go. Now we have the 1838 account. This is the canonized official story. This is the one that I spoon fed to you at the start.
Ah, okay.
It's very polished. It is in our book of scripture called the Pearl of Great Price.
They
And
have really beautiful phrasing. I must say, if
thank
there's anything
you.
that Mormonism has given to the
Yeah,
world, is
absolutely.
absolutely beautiful,
The word
awesome.
of wisdom,
Yeah.
the pearl of great price,
Ecclesiastical, what is it again?
endorsement,
Endorsement. Yeah, I'm like,
yes, you love
oh my
that.
goodness. Yeah, yeah, please.
Yeah, this is the version that we get told ever since we're in elementary school years, from when we're teeny tiny to seminary and then as an adult going into classes of Sunday school. And like I said, it's repeated every 4 years
Hmm.
as part of our standard works and what
Hmm.
we cover at church. So at this point, in 1838, Joseph is the prophet of the church with thousands of followers. And so he sits down to write the official story. This is 1838. So he talks about being a 14-year-old boy, that he enters a grove of trees and
Hmm.
kneels to pray, and darkness gathers around him. Like I said, a terrifying power trying to bind his tongue. And then light. That pillar of fire, brighter than the sun, two glorious beings appear standing above him in the air. One points to the other and says, "This is my beloved son. Hear him." Joseph asks which church he should join, and he is told none. All are wrong. Their creeds are an abomination. Their
Mm,
professors are corrupt.
mm,
So now we have a very bold, dramatic, confrontational narrative.
mhm.
And this is what's going to become the cornerstone story
Yeah.
of Mormonism.
Right. So now God the Father points to God the Son and say, "This is my son in whom I'm well pleased, hear him." And then
Yes.
he totally ignores that. I'm like, I don't give a damn about that. What church should I go to? That's really why I need you here. It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
that's out of context, but sure. And then he says, no, none of them are right. None of them are correct. They are corrupt. Their creeds are corrupt,
Mm-hmm.
and their professors are corrupt. So now, yeah, as you
Mm-hmm.
said, it's now including. It's not just a private experience. Now it's a social experience where he's talking
Yeah.
about things around him and people around him and already declaring them as the other and God confirming that. That is very strategic. I find it very
Yeah.
impressive. Huh.
Well, and a big contradiction between the 1832 account and the 1838 one
Mm-hmm.
is that, okay, so like I said, in the 1832 one, he says very clearly that he already knew that all the churches were not true. That I'll reread it. By searching the scriptures, I found that mankind did not come unto the Lord, but that they had all apostatized. So he already knew that, okay?
I
But in the
see.
1838 account, he writes, "My object in going to inquire of the Lord was to know which of all the sects was right, and that I might know which to join. For at this time it had never entered into my heart that all were wrong." So he very clearly states that
Wow.
never did he have any
Yeah.
possible thought
Huh.
that these churches were wrong. And so he contradicts himself in a matter of three, no, how many years? 6 years. In a 6 year time frame, he's already
Wow.
contradicting himself in his own
Well,
writings.
I'm not. That's not surprising. That's what happens. That's
Yes,
what
of
happens.
course, when
Yeah.
you lie.
That's what happens when you lie, and also when you try to call anything really, and you then enforce that as accurate. That's the problem. Is
Well,
recalling
and
things that never
especially
happened.
if you're trying to recall something that didn't happen.
Like, yeah, exactly. They tend to be contradictory. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds
Yep.
me of what happened in the New Testament, the second trilogy,
The
where
second part of the trilogy.
yes, the second part,
Yeah.
and Jesus dies. He died between two criminals. One of them
Hmm.
said, "Oh, this guy's very innocent.
Right.
He doesn't
Yeah.
need to be abused like this. Like we are. We deserve to be abused." And this is the
Hmm.
narrative that's being fed to a lot of Christians. And then the other one is like, "No, no, no. He deserves it. If he's God, he should save himself and save the rest of us." And then Jesus Christ looks to the other guy that defended him and said, "Tonight you'll be with me in paradise," which is like, wait, you've already
Hmm.
prepared the place that you said you're going to prepare for your disciples. You've already prepared it
Hmm.
already. Why did you say you're going? Okay, all right. We're not going to question that. But then there are other places in the gospel that say so. No, both of them were disparaging him, and then he said, "Father,
Hmm.
forgive them, for they don't know what they do." So it's like, oh, okay. What happened? Then we have the last words that he say. So the last words that he said before he dies is, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit," and then he passes away. And then there's another one where he says, "Father, Father, why have you forsaken me?" And then he passes away. And then
Hmm.
so it's like, okay, what was his right words? And then there are some gospels that merges the two together. So it's like, okay, I see what you were trying to do there. And then you have the resurrection, which is who was at the tomb. The first one says it was only Mary Magdalene that went, and then the other one says Mary, mother of Jesus, and Mary, on their
Hmm.
way at dawn, there was an earthquake, and then the angels came down and rolled a stone from the door, and then they went straight in, and Jesus Christ was not there. And then the angels were like, "Women of Galilee, what are you looking for?" Kind of. But then the third one says it was Mary Magdalene, the other Mary, and then Joanna. We're like, who
Hmm.
is Joanna? We don't know who Joanna is. So Joanna goes, and then the stone is already rolled away. So there's
Yeah.
no earthquake in this one because obviously an
No.
earthquake everyone would feel it in the Levant at that
Mm.
time everyone would feel it, but there's no earthquake in this one. They just go, the stone is already rolled away and there is nobody there.
Yeah.
And then the angels just appeared behind him. Oh, you remember when he said you should meet him in Galilee? Go and tell your disciples to meet him in Galilee. It's like you have so many different accounts. There's one where it's like Mary, the other
Yeah.
Mary, Joanna,
It's true.
and Salome. Like who is Salome?
I
Salome.
can't keep track of these ladies.
And like, well, okay, like so the story just keeps on.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful contradiction, but you can see what people are trying to do, writing it from their own
Yeah, of
perspective and stories that they've
course.
heard. There was one where I think the first one
Yeah,
was when it
exactly.
was just Mary
Hmm.
Magdalene that went. There was no earthquake, there's no angel. It's just some stranger in the garden
Yeah.
by the tomb that says, "Woman, why are you crying?" And it's
Yep.
like, "Oh, they came to steal the body of my Jesus. I don't know." And it's like, "Oh no, Mary, I am he. I'm here, I'm the guy." And Mary tries to go and hug him, and he says, "No, don't touch me now because I haven't presented myself to the Father yet." Right? And then he refuses the hug, which is, I mean, I get it. And then Mary rushes to go and tell Peter and John, or go and tell the disciples. And then Peter and John runs to the tomb, and then they don't find him, they see his shroud,
Mm.
and Peter mourns over it. And then when they go back, Jesus has already appeared to them, and he's like, "Oh, you can touch me now, touch my wounds. Hey, there it is. Hey, you can touch me." And it's like, wait, I thought why didn't you let Mary hug you? I thought wait, I thought you were going to present yourself to the Father. So,
Hmm.
and this is 30 years after all of this happened, by the way, 30 years plus after
Hmm.
all of these events happened. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, of course, 30 years after this happened, and someone trying to recollect, or someone listening to people and writing it down, of course you're going to have all of these contradictions. That's what it does. Memory fails us, and sometimes exaggerations happen when you have an agenda to bolster your ideology. That's just what
Yeah.
happens. Human beings are fascinating like that, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I think what's fair about that comparison is just, the different perspectives, the
Mm-hmm.
different authors, the different
Yes.
writers
Yeah.
of the New Testament and their interpretation of things. The frustrating thing about Joseph Smith's account is that these are all
Him.
him.
Oh my,
So it's
yeah, so
like,
yeah, it's bad.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
yeah,
it's just
yeah,
bad.
that's
Okay. So the 1842 account, it's called the Wentworth Letter. This
Mhm.
is a more polished, simplified version written for the Chicago newspaper editor, and it's later published in the Times and Seasons. And so finally, Joseph tells the story one more time, this time to outsiders, but now the details shrink. He
Oh,
describes confusion about religion, a vision of two personages, a message that the fullness of the gospel will be revealed to him later. No darkness, no creeds called an abomination. The rough edges are all sanded down. It's cleaner, softer. It's tailored for public relations, basically.
yeah, that's what I was just about to say. That sounds like
Yep.
PR. That sounds like
Mm-hmm.
trimming it down to fit the public's
Exactly.
approval. Wow.
Basically, what we are seeing here is that in 1832, he only sees Jesus and it's the forgiveness of sins. In 1835, it's two beings plus angels. In 1838, it's the grand official story, God the Father and Jesus Christ. All the churches are corrupt, Satan, the whole nine yards that I
Mhm.
shared with you at the beginning. And then
Yes.
in 1844, it's more gentle, PR friendly, and
Wow.
there you go. Here's another big chunk of the story that's missing, and
Mhm.
that is that between 12 and 20 years, nobody, not even the members, knew of this story. Okay. Part of what was going on when he did write this down was that he was getting a lot of pressure from outsiders, like, okay, well, what makes you guys any more special or whatever. And so then this story came. But prior to that, really, they had no idea of any of this. This was not something that had been circulated. Let me read to you this little piece.
Okay.
So, yeah, no one, including Joseph Smith's family members and the saints, had ever heard about the first vision from 12 to 22 years after it supposedly occurred. The first
Mhm.
and earliest written account of the first vision in Joseph's journal was 12 years after the spring of 1820. There's absolutely no record of any claimed first vision prior to this account. Also, this didn't even begin to be taught to the greater congregation until the 1840s. And to me, what makes me take pause in that is that this is big,
Yeah. This
Evans.
should be the front. This should be the first thing you say to everybody you meet. That is the
This is a
that's a
big fucking deal.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, I was told that I need to move my family from
Mm,
Virginia to Paris, France, or wherever.
mhm.
And God told me to, this is a big deal. Like, you're not just keeping this to yourself. And then again, if something so massive, so miraculous happened to you,
Mhm.
you write it down.
Yeah. Write it down that day. Yeah. People write down less things that happens to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it is crazy, when you really stop
It
and
makes me wonder
think
though,
about it.
if he wasn't selling this message to people at the beginning of him attracting people to his cause, I wonder
Yeah.
what people were attracted to him. Like what about his message or his movement was attracting people prior to them knowing the whole
Yeah.
point of this movement
Yeah.
in the first place. Like what
Yeah.
else would they be attracted to? Because there's a
Yeah.
reason why people join people. Like people are charismatic, people
Absolutely.
you know.
He was
So
extremely
right.
charismatic from an early age. Him, his father. This was a time when people believed in mysticism and in the
Mm,
supernatural. And this was the time of, oh my goodness, this is a new land. America's a new country. There's got to be like pirates must have come here and buried treasure, and the Native Americans must have hidden the treasure. So many people were having visions. You can look up
wow.
in this time period newspaper clippings, and it really wasn't that strange for somebody to even claim that they had a visionary experience.
Right.
And we had kind of touched on that in earlier podcasts, but this was
Yes.
very common. Looking at rocks in hats and having these gemstones that could tell you the future or say, dig this up in your backyard or you lost your keys. Well, people probably weren't losing their keys. Like you lost the
Yes.
reins to the horses or something like that. I don't know.
Yes.
They will look for them somewhere. Just like you got to do this. And so all of this was very much part of the day to day and the milieu of that time.
Mm,
And Joseph banked on it. And he was very much known for being able to divine where these treasures were. And for a big chunk of his life, he really was into treasure hunting and treasure seeking. And he even got pulled to the courts because there were certain people that weren't okay with what he was doing. But for everyone that wasn't okay, there were others that are saying, hey, can you help me find my whatever? Or do you think that there's buried treasure on my property or whatever?
yeah.
And so they look to him as this inspired,
I
boy,
see.
because perhaps he got a couple of things right.
Of course.
Actually, I don't think he ever did, but there was something about him that made people think that maybe this kid could.
Right.
And he was charismatic. Also, you have to imagine the storytelling abilities of that time when they didn't have television or radio or anything like
Right.
that, they became very good even at an early age to create stories. and
Yeah.
and when we talk about the Book of Mormon, we can understand better how he was able to write that. But yeah, talking about Indians fighting one another and everything, which is kind of the premise of the Book of Mormon. I mean, this was very much what the kids and what the people of his time were trying to figure out. Where did these Indians come from?
People are generally drawn to charismatic people, but mostly people are generally drawn to young, charismatic people because
Absolutely.
the zeal, the strength, the passion that they see is like that automatically equates to okay, there must be something that this young person has seen that is so important to them that they are willing to put themselves out there
Yeah.
to sell this message, and there's always something attractive to that, and that's why before the cameras and all of those things, a lot of actors were young, and a lot of actors that
Yeah.
play different characters were young, all
Yeah.
these characters. So the writers would be in the older generation, and then they would employ all of these actors, the ladies, the guys, to sing and to dance and all that. You had
Mm.
to be young to do that. Why? Because of the just you they sell the stories better, and I can see that appeal with
Yeah.
even in modern times.
Sure.
In my own experience, it was always fascinating to see a young person take up the Bible, go on the streets and preach the gospel, and then it's just people see that, and even if they don't agree with a young person, they still find it cute. They still find it something to be admired. They
Hmm.
love that. It's just a generally approved societal thing. That's like the reaction is generally positive. So it's no surprise that he would have drawn a few people without even selling them. How he
Yeah.
got to there in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is that this story is
Mm-hmm.
like the cornerstone story of
Mm-hmm.
Mormonism. And when it's shifting so much, what does that say about its foundation? It's just not a sure one.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one to build off of. I'm going to tell you one last story.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. So we go to the future. Okay, it's the 1930s. Picture
Oh,
this. Okay, this is the 1930s. Joseph Fielding Smith. Okay,
okay.
he's a historian of the
Who?
Mormon Church. His
So
name is Joseph Fielding Smith.
this is not Joseph Smith.
No, this is the 1930s. Joseph is
Right,
almost a
dead.
hundred years dead.
He's
Yes,
dust now. Okay, so Joseph
he is
Fielding
dust.
Smith.
This is one of his nephew or great nephew or something like that. So
Right. Okay.
he's an ancestor, okay?
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Joseph Fielding Smith at this time is the church historian, but in a few years, he's going to become the next prophet. Okay. So, where
Okay.
we're at in time is that he's going to become one of the prophets, but at this time, he's just the church historian. Okay. He's going through the archives of the church, right?
Mm-hmm.
On a regular Tuesday, let's say.
Regular Tuesday.
He's And then he comes across one of the most sacred documents in Mormon history, and
Okay.
that's Joseph Smith's letter book, his personal
Oh.
journal.
Okay.
As he's flipping through the pages, he comes across a very unexpected page.
Okay.
It's the account of the first vision,
Oh.
written in Joseph's handwriting.
Oh. Again.
But but it's no. This is just keep going
Okay.
with me.
Okay. I'm
This
going.
is this is that version that I'm telling you about. This is the 1832 version.
Ah. Right.
Okay?
Okay.
So, but it's not the story he's been told. There's no God the Father. There's only the Son standing. They're not side by side. He's not even there. And instead, Joseph writes a vision of the Lord, only Jesus, and the focus is on forgiveness of sins,
Oh.
not on which church is true. This doesn't line up, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't go along with that polished 1838 version that everybody hears since, they're babies in a cradle. Now the account is threatened, right? And he's like, well, shoot.
What are we gonna
What
do?
what are we gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
Because like if anybody were to get their hands on this I mean, this is 1930. At this point,
Yeah.
it's been almost 100 years
Yeah.
that this narrative has been stated as the official 1838
Yeah.
one. And so he's like, I don't know. What am I going to do? What would you do in a situation like that, Evans?
Ooh. I would go to the church elders and be like, "Have you seen this?" And I'll be like, "Hey, we should probably tell the truth."
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's
So,
not
so what happened?
what Joseph Fielding Smith did. Okay. That sounds lovely. And,
You
you
mean to
know,
tell me that he didn't do that?
so what he decided to do was the next best thing, which
Oh,
was
okay.
to get out a razor blade and even cut it jankily out of the book. He cuts it with a razor blade. He slices the page right out of the journal. He removes them and he puts them in a safe, in a safe that he locks up. Yep. And then for decades, those pages are gone. Okay. Regular members, nobody know that they exist. When historians ask about them, they're just brushed off. The story continues. And what happens is then we go ahead into the future, into the 1960s. And in the 1960s, there was this grad student. Okay. This grad student is doing some research and he is given special permission to go to the vaults and to look at things. And he discovers this 1832 account and he publishes it in his master's thesis.
Oh,
At that time, though, again, this is pre-internet, the circulation is very tiny,
Hmm.
okay? Very few people are starting to hear about this. So keep in
Hmm.
mind, this is now over 100 years after the passing of Joseph Smith, and only one narrative has been spoon-fed to us, and now some whisperings are happening about how there may be more than one account, okay?
Mm.
And so then in the late 1960s, a historian named Dean Jesse, he transcribes and publishes this thesis in BYU Studies, but still not a lot of people are hearing about it. Then we have these two critics of the church. Their names are Gerald and Sandra Tanner. They're a husband and wife, and they publish the full 1832 account. But of course, because they have been critics of the faith, they are not believed and they are considered anti Mormon. And so nobody listens to
Ah.
them. Then what happens? All of this is going on, it's circulating, the whispers. It's kind of like, well, maybe not. Kind of like that peepstone. We were taught as children that Joseph Smith just translated the Book of Mormon, just as like an act of God, that he would read from the Book of Mormon gold plates
Hmm.
and would write them down onto paper. And really, the whole idea of having a rock and a hat was considered anti Mormon. You could get in big trouble for
Oh.
perpetuating that narrative. And then it wasn't until my generation that it was revealed no, that's exactly what went down. And anybody that got excommunicated or
Wow.
flack for bringing that up was actually correct. So,
Wow.
2009 rolls around. The church's Joseph Smith Papers Project publishes the account. It's still not being broadcast. No large announcement is being extended to the lay members of the church.
Hmm.
And then in 2013, the church quietly releases the first vision accounts, gospel topics essay online, and they finally admit that there are multiple versions. Again,
Wow.
a lot of what we're going to be talking about in these next few episodes are going to come from what's called the gospel topic essays. These essays came out in a period of time between 2013 and I want to say 2015, 2016. These essays were not distributed to all of us members. They were put on the internet in a way where if you stumbled upon them, you would have your mind blown by the admissions or
It was a
what.
secret. It was done secretly.
It just wasn't done in a way where they wanted the members to know that they were there and that basically they were correcting the narrative. To a certain extent, what's going on is if members say, "What? Nobody ever told me that there were four different versions to the first vision." Now they can easily say, "Yeah, we did. It's on the
It's over
internet.
there.
It's over there." And it's like, but what I want people to
Wow.
understand is that only, only did this
Wow.
happen in 2013. Before that, it was just the rumor mill. And it
Yeah.
slowly came to be after over 100 years. And so for over 130 years, members only heard the 1838 account. And the other versions were not just hidden in the archives, but this man who later became the prophet of the faith
Hmm.
was so perplexed and so scared and so threatened by the 1832 account that he took a frickin' razor blade and
Yeah.
cut it out. And if you see pictures of it today, and they're out there on the internet,
Okay.
this brilliant man decided to get scotch tape and put it back together. So when you see it, these images on the internet, you can see the flimsy, transparent scotch tape of the 1960s that is trying to paste the pages back together. And it's just so silly. And it's such a cover up. And what bothers me is that, to be honest, Evans, this is the first time that you're even hearing about the official account.
Hmm.
There are a lot of people listening to me today that have never heard, like true active believers, they have never heard that there was more than just that account.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
for them, that's new information.
Whew.
For you, it's first the story, but then
Yeah.
all these other
Yeah.
contradictory stories that go with it that just don't make any sense.
It is mind blowing. Okay, let me take a pause so I can marinate for a
Yeah.
second because this is very amazing to actually learn, hear the story for the first time, appreciate the narrative and how it sounds persuasive, and then to go through all the contradictory versions of it, and then to learn that one of the historians with the same name, with a middle name, finds out, and his reaction appropriately was to cut it with a razor blade and
Correct.
incompetently try to stitch it back together with a tape
Yeah.
and
30
keep
years
it.
later.
Yes,
He
and
kept it hostage for 30 years.
yes, and then they find out. Someone finds out, and then they later adapt it in their doctrine and then post it without telling the members, preparing a whole gaslighting moment for when the members question it, if they ever
Yeah.
find the courage to question it, for them to respond and say, "Oh no, it was always there. We admitted it."
It's an intentional act to hide history.
Yes.
And he was a historian. And that
Yeah.
goes, it would be like a doctor causing harm.
Yeah. Yeah. That that
That,
is that's
that
definitely
has no integrity.
that disqualifies
And,
you as a historian. That is something that you would do to get your license revoked if you're a medical doctor. Like that's it's one of those things. Yeah.
and yet this man went on to become the prophet of the church.
Wow.
So his honesty, his integrity led him to eventually become one of the men that we all follow blindly. The same men who get revelation that, gay people shouldn't get married, but
Ah.
don't get any revelation on whether black people are actual people.
Well,
Yeah,
well. 1978 is still around the corner, so it was on the way.
it was
It
on the
was on
way.
the way.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Let's cut him some slack. Okay. Um, maybe he was busy thinking
Yeah.
about the duct tape, the scotch tape.
I know exactly
Oh
the Scotch tape
wow,
account. But yeah, when
wow,
it's an inconvenient truth, what the institution does is they hide it, they bury it, they do
right,
what they have to do to
yeah,
not share it. And only when the forces of time make
catches up.
them,
Yeah,
are they able to,
yeah.
try to do the dance of apologetics and
There we go.
explain things.
Yeah,
But ultimately, yeah, it really, I think I'm going to show in the course of all these podcasts how time and time again the church has no integrity and it's shameful, and
wow,
the secrets that are within the rituals, as we've talked about. And then there's this.
wow.
Just
That
downright
is.
lies.
Now, I'm gonna do what I always do, which is try to relate to it in my experience, having conversations with people within their own denominations, but still mainstream Christianity. And I've had conversations with people about the story in the Old Testament, the first trilogy,
Hmm.
about the story of Adam and Eve, and the Cain and
Hmm.
Abel story, and the Noah's
Yeah.
Ark, and to hear people, some people, this doesn't apply to Christianity as a whole. This is just some people, right? So this is not something that I'm saying about all Christians, right? There's just a few people. And to hear them say, well, no, there's never been a time where Christians took the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve story literal. What are you talking about? He was gaslighting me,
Mm,
of accusing him of taking the Bible
right.
literally when obviously this whole time Christians knew that we shouldn't take this story literally. It was all allegorical, it was all metaphor to talk about something that means something. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, are you kidding me? Are you trolling me right now? Because that's not true. But then they do that and it's like, oh, you need to listen to this and you need to read this and you need to have a more sophisticated approach to these things. I'm like, that sounds like some 21st century privileged babble to me. Like you get to be in the 21st century, you get to dismiss every single Christian that have come before you that took it
Hmm.
literally and made life decisions
Hmm.
based on these things,
I
and
know.
you get to sit in your comfy chair with your iPhones and just dismiss all of that and be like, man, they should have taken it allegorically. It's all their fault. It's like, wow, the real
Hmm.
life editing, it's incredible. It's just human behavior is The shame that they feel when they find that they have met a contradiction is they are presented two choices: to be honest or
Yeah.
to double down, to try to erase your shame and
Yeah.
become something that you probably didn't want to begin with. Because this is the thing: Joseph Fielding Smith, as a historian, probably was a legitimate historian. He genuinely wanted to be a good historian until he found this thing out. And then he was presented with a choice. Life presented him with a choice. There you
That's
go.
right.
Here is your opportunity to become a real historian or a charlatan.
Yeah.
And then he
Yeah.
chose to be a charlatan. It's very interesting the choices you make and the agendas that are attached to those choices. And this is what makes testimony and religious zeal and the push of narratives. This is why
Yeah.
it always gets my spidey senses tingling. Because
Yeah.
it's like, how sure are you that
Yeah.
this narrative is accurate? One, and also this narrative has always been the narrative, and not that you are in this generation and you happen to be fed this particular narrative that you're so confident about. Going through deconstruction in Christianity was one of the biggest shots in my ego because of how confident I was with the narrative that I was fed, only
Yes.
to realize how
Yeah.
wrong I was.
Yeah.
So,
I feel you there, Evans, because that was the same for me. It really does bring you to a place of what questioning of what do I really know and what is really real at this point,
right.
and yeah, I mean, I was always taught, for example, President Gordon B. Hinckley, who was one of the prophets of our faith, he stated over and over, our whole strength rests on the validity of that first vision. It either occurred
Whoa.
or it did not occur. If it did not, then this work is a fraud. If it did, then it's the most important and wonderful work under the
Oh,
heavens.
I know what he's doing there. This is a parallel to Paul in the New Testament. He
There
says
you
the
go.
exact same thing. Is if Jesus
Yes,
Christ did not come to die for us, then
that's
all of
right.
this would be in vain. He's doing the exact same thing that Paul did.
Yeah,
That's very interesting that he says that. But
yeah.
but you see how charismatic that is. It's powerful.
Oh,
It's
and Gordon B.
very
Hinckley was an extremely
wow.
charismatic prophet. And what scares me is that was Joseph Fielding Smith rewarded for this choice and eventually then got, called to be the prophet of the
He
faith?
probably
And
had
now
his own
we've got
planet. You know?
he definitely does. And then Gordon B. Hinckley, who was a prophet during my lifetime, was stating these things. And of course, after he passed away, all of these things started to come to light. And so
Wow.
that's what I want to leave you with. And this is how we start the Mormon story.
Wow.
Yeah, this young
We
boy
are
and
in
his multiple stories, not
yes.
just one, and ones that were so contradictory to each other that men had to take out razor blades and adjust the hands of history.
It's Scotch tape.
Yep,
I
with
mean if
scotch tape.
this is very important, and I want us to go down this rabbit hole. This is the new rabbit hole, guys. So brace yourself. I am bracing myself, and I can't wait to see what else we get on the gospel topics. What is it called again?
Gospel topic essays.
Gospel topic essays, and there are so many topics under it, that including plural
Yeah.
marriages
Oh,
and
yeah. We're going to
etc.
cover it
I
all.
am
Yeah.
excited. So welcome to season two. We've been on season two for a while, but this is season two, and we are in a new series now. And I am excited, and I hope you guys are
Yeah.
excited too. Ali, you are phenomenal in the way you are able to break down things for me to
No.
understand. Because the way that I test that I understand something is to
Yeah.
put it in my own words, regurgitate it, and try
Okay.
to frame it in a way that I would say it, right? And when I'm able to do that, that shows that I understand it. And when I'm not able to do that, I can't do that. But the way that I'm able to narrate my understanding of Mormonism, and now you've given me this new information, and I hope that as time goes on, I'm able to find more accurate information with Mormonism so that I can understand what it stands for, why it's there, how it started, and why it is so goddamn rich right now. So I'm looking forward to this.
Okay.
Yeah, this
Well,
is great.
let's keep going. And this is just the beginning. So thanks for coming along.
Thanks for coming
So, and
along.
all of you, thanks for listening, like and subscribe. And I really hope that we can all learn from the true history and not just what we've been handed
Right.
and we
Right.
blindly believe.
Exactly.
So
Isn't Ali amazing? I think so.
now
So
stop it.
if you agree,
Stop, stop,
let
stop,
me know.
stop.
If you disagree, let me know too. It depends on how you approach it. Okay. All right. We'll see you guys in the next episode.
All
Stay
right.
tuned.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.